Welcome back to the third part of PHP. Uh, we will discuss the functions which is available for every programming language. We'll start this with, as usual, a metaphor. Imagine a function as a recipe that the chef follows when creating meal, which is the return value. The parameters of these recipes are the ingredients. So that's actually the parameters of a function as well. So in a high level, that's how function works, but let's dig into the details. First, defining function. A function must be introduced via the function keyword followed by the parentheses in which the parameters can be entered. So here, it followed by a parenthesis, the function name first, and then you can insert the parameter in inside this parenthesis. In this case, it has no parameters yet. So later we will discuss function that has parameters. After that, the statements to be executed are inside the curly brackets. So these brackets uses a while loop to execute. This function will execute this while loop. Function parameters. If the function is then called without parameters, the loop behave as in the previous example here. Um, so the parameters or ingredients of this is 1, and then 2, 10, and then we use while loop. When we print just the parentheses, it shows 1 to 10. When we print uh, uh, 90 and 100, it shows the difference from 90 to 100. So this is the output of that. Since this from equal to 1 to 10 shows the difference. So let's say we input here 100 and then 110. So this will show from 100 to 110. If a variable is to be passed by reference, you'll need to append a n character in front of the parameter. So if we want to reference a variable like what we've discussed in the previous video, we need to use end inside before the variable name. So here function change the number end I and then number, and then we use the reference number. And then we call this function change number I comma 20. So we change this I to 20, and then now it's 20. So that's how it goes step by step. We first need to define the function and then initialize it, and then call the function, the new parameters to the function. If you need to pass many parameters, theoretically an infinite to a function, you can use the token. So here, we use this dot 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 and then dollar sign numbers. Then we use for each loop here, and then we run through numbers 1, 2, until 10. So we can use this until 100 since we have this dot dot dot. Another example, so let's say you're making a smoothie. Some like recipe definitely has some certain or limit with its ingredients, but sometimes you want the ingredients, an infinite number of ingredients. Let's say you want to eat a lot of nuts or carrots. You can do that using this. Um, uh, Using these techniques. So here, let's say you want to make a smoothie, banana, strawberries, milk, honey. you make a smoothie and then dot ingredients, and then you return the blend that implode ingredients together. And then defining return values. So this is the third part. The return keyword allows a function to return a value. So here you define this function and then you show in the you provide inside the curly brackets the operation, which is in this case the sum, and then inside that you return the value. It's like cooking the recipe, the dish, and then serving it. So that's like returning a value, and then you echo so that it returns to the screen using data types. Another thing here is that it doesn't need to always returns on the screen because remember guys, we're working with machine language, which is 1010. So sometimes we just need some execution on the background without showing it to the customer. But if you want to show that operation, we can definitely use this echo. But a lot of times it's happening on the back end. So let's say we have some operation in the back end for like database. So let's say you want some technique on your data that will allow you to sort it. You don't need to show that to the user. So this is where this function comes about. But we return it using echo. Using data types, a good recipe doesn't just say add something, it specify the type of ingredients. So just like in TypeScript where the type definition is automatic, we can also do that here so that it's better or and more organized. So instead of just putting the ingredients, we can put the type of ingredients. So let's say flour, we want that to be only string. And then milk, we want that to have only floating numbers. So if you do not go no floating numbers, it's has a decimal value like this, 2.5. And then integer for eggs. That's why it's only 2. So string, and then return this. So it returns a string for all of this. Here's the output: mix wheat flour, 2.5 cups of milk, and 2 eggs. And then anonymous function. So anonymous function can be think of as a secret recipe that is not written down. So it's not really clear. Have you experienced some people that is just good in cooking, and whenever you want to eat those kind of foods, you just call the person, but they can't seem to write down or say what how they do it. They are just good at cooking it. So that's one of the metaphor or one of the best metaphor for anonymous function. The anonymous function inside array underscore map is callable, meaning it's a function passed as an ingredient to another function. So those this anonymous array map. So let's explain first what's this array map. Array map applies the callable function recipe to each item in the array. So here we have an example. We define the numbers in an array, and then we define square numbers as this array map, and then function num return we square this pow square num2, and then later we print it. So what's happening here on this code is that here, imagine of the numbers as a basket of raw ingredients, and then array underscore map function num return pow num2 numbers. It applies a secret cooking technique, anonymous function, to each ingredients. So these ingredients is being mixed to this secret sauce. Here is the secret sauce. Cooks each ingredient by squaring it, the pow num squared. So here, each number will be squared later when we print that. Zero, what, the first array. So for array, you start with zero, which is the one. When we square that, it's just one, and then the next array is one. This two, when we square it, is four, and then the next array is three. When we squared it, it's 9, and then 4, 16, and then 25. So that's what this means. It's kind of complicated if you don't have that metaphor, right? If we need a different transformation, i.e. double the numbers instead of squaring, we could change the anonymous function. So let's say we want to just add or subtract something on the number, we can change this instead of pow or squaring it, because pow means power. You raise it to its squared, so that's what it means. You multiply itself. But if you want to subtract or minus, we can use a different uh, operation. Anonymous functions are functions that do not have a name, also referred to as closures. So another name for this anonymous function is closures. And then declaring variables. After the assignment, however, the variables is no longer anonymous since the name is defined by the variable. Note that the function call is then preceded by the dollar sign. So the function call um, for these variables, if we name this anonymous function by a variable like sum, it's not anonymous function anymore because it's like a recipe or the secret of that person that is good in cooking has been written down or has been explained clearly. So it's not a secret anymore. Return, so it's same. We echo. When we echo, we use a dollar sign before it. So instead of defining the function inside array underscore map, we can store it in a variable, like writing down a recipe to reuse. So the beauty of this is that instead of just the cook knowing how to do it, so let's say the cook suddenly travel another country, then no one knows how to cook that delicious food. But if it's written down, it can be reused. You can teach that to other people. Another metaphor is like communication skills. It's one thing to know or to be good at what you do, but it's another thing to be able to explain those knowledge and have other people reuse your knowledge. So that's one way to think about it. So here, square function, and then we return pow number two. Instead of defining the function inside RMI, we can store it in a variable like writing down a recipe. So here, we store it in a variable, square numbers equal array map, so that we can reuse it. Now, square function is a callable recipe that can be reused anywhere. Anonymous functions, recipes without names used inside other functions. Callables equal function passed as ingredients to another functions. So callables is a functions passed as an ingredients to another function. So from the word itself, array underscore map applies a callable recipe to every element in an array. So this array underscore map applies a recipe in each element in this array. So let's go back to that to be able to uh, understand it better. As the array map here. So this array map, another way to describe it is that it applies a recipe, which is this function num return pow, to each these ingredients. So That's why it squared everything. Storing anonymous function in variables makes them reusable recipes. Arrow functions, instead of writing a will return statement, some modern functions assume the return, like how experienced chef just know the next step. So some chef doesn't need that extra instruction on the recipe anymore because it just takes their time reading it instead of actually executing it since they've already memorized the step. So here, an example, function cookstick, shorten. So this is the shortened version using PHP. Fn, grill the steak for 5 minutes. So instead of having this like curly brackets and then another line break, we just have it in one line. And then for JavaScript, here, because this function, arrow function, is like in JavaScript, uh, it's another way to describe a function. It's a shortened way, so it's also um, shows on JavaScript. As you can see, guys, it's almost the same with other programming language. So if you have learned JavaScript in the previous video, uh, it will be easier for you to build on that foundation. Responding to errors, a fatal error, for example, stop the script at the point where it occurred. Continuing is not possible after that, while a notice is just a notification explaining that there might be an error. So, for responding to errors, there's different kind of errors. First is a fatal error. So, let's say the chef fry or accidentally hit. I mean, the food or recipe are just toasted, right? So he needs to do the cooking all over again. So that's just like a fatal error. Continuing is not possible after that. Well, a notice is just a notification explaining there might be an error. So it's like a chef that pours more salt than expected. It doesn't really destroy the food, but it just sh- tells the chef that he needs to adjust what he's doing because the food may not be as good as he expected. So, if no error handling function has been specified, the errors will be handled according to the configuration. So, if no error handling function, there is configuration. So that configuration could be on inside your code or on the settings of your development or production. So what I mean by that is that, oops, in a development environment, the error reporting value within php.ini is always set to e underscore all. This value will display all possible errors and warnings, which will then alert you to problems in the code so that you can correct them. So during development, it's like a chef that wants to fail ahead of time before the actual cooking so that he knows what might gone wrong. So he might test all the appliances, all the ingredients, if it's available. So in productions, the warnings are disabled or redirected to a log file. So just like serving food to a customer, since it's already serving time, you don't want them to be alerted to every inch of mistake or every inch of bad dish because not all dish are bad. So some are good, some are bad. So you don't want to alert them, but you still want to keep a log of that, let's say for feedback the after the food, you can ask for a feedback. Then those feedbacks will be asked after they eaten the food, not during serving and eating the food. If you know in advance that error could occur under certain circumstances, so like the some are just prone to mistake, like um, a knife, right? When cutting vegetables, so you can catch that error by preparing a gloves. For this purpose, you can draw on a variety of objects, all of which are derived from throwable. So throwable provides a variety of objects that allow PHP to detect errors. If the code is executed, so this throwable is like in Node.js, the built-in modules, or you can think of it like a built-in library within its language that provide functions for all of the errors that you may encounter. So if the code is executed, PHP aborts with the following error: fatal error, uncut error, endless loop in test.php on line 5. So here, for example, we print numbers and then throw new error, endless loop. So inside the function, we throw the error before we print the number. So we prepare for the error. With the previously mentioned try catch block, you can catch such errors and then react accordingly. So we can catch the error and then the script was aborted with the following error message. So yeah, uh, we're done with the functions and errors. In the next video, we will discuss classes. It's almost the same with the previous language, so it's just a reiteration of this. But the key takeaways is that functions allow us to, it's like a script or a recipe that allows us to reuse it throughout our application. So again, guys, thank you for watching and see you on the next video. Peace.